the greatest the stressful situations here was during electrical storms, or when you were changing loads constantly up and down, as Lyle requested very often. Sometimes generators were up and down all the time, and during the night you would be probably tired, stressed by noise. You might also have machines going offline due to electrical interference, electrical storms, sometimes damage to the machines in the station, lightning bolts running through the station, tremendous shaking of the ground from electrical discharge from the sky to the earth around here. Sometimes it was like being at, I thought of it once as like being in a gun turret at sea, in a battleship, and machinery screaming. Sometimes when it went off load it didn't do 500 revs but did 650, and machines would be screaming and bells would be ringing.
What happened next? I'm on afternoon shift with my mate, and we just got the cups like this, and I can remember tipping it in and turning the tap on, and the lights go out. Next thing, of course, we bounce into each other. I says, we lost everything very sudden, because usually it takes a time before they die, but this was sudden. And as I opened the crib house door, I could see flames shooting. I said, we got a fire. And of course, next thing, we reached for the torch, both of us. We dropped the torch, smashed it. We got no light. Look, it was bizarre. It's how did we restart? I put, that's right, isolate the whole station, because the exciters were on a different line, DC, 120. So I put the lights on, figure with the light, up, we got light. Right, now I go up in the back in there, and there's smoke pouring, so how far can you go? Oh, well, it's burned. Then I looked at it, I could see this burn hole, copper on the floor. I says, it just burned itself to smithereens.
The travelling in and out was the only trouble. On the rail car, you only had the 2 nights a week that you could go into town, and that was a Wednesday and Saturday. And Saturday, you could go in at midday on Saturday, and on the Wednesday was a ladies' day. And that took the ladies in to do their shopping. And we had groceries delivered twice a week, on a Wednesday and Saturday. That was all, and the papers and the mail used to come out each day when the school children come home. They used to go to school at 8:20 and get home at 5 o'clock at night. It was a long day for them. Well, the nights we used to have the dances, they used to have the rail cars run, and they run 3 cars, and we'd have an orchestra come out from here, and they'd go and you could have so many visitors each, at each place, and you go there till 9 o'clock, and then they'd blow the siren at the station to say what time it was, and then they'd all go down to the hall and have the dance going then till about 1 o'clock, and then they'd bring the rail cars back in again.
We used to go on the rail motor to school in the mornings, and if it was very frosty we'd have trouble, or if it was a little bit of snow, we'd have trouble on the zigzag part of the line. And then the big boys, who were probably all of about 13 or 14, they'd be allowed to hop out with a little tin of sand. It was probably a little baked bean tin or something, and sprinkle it on the line, and the rail motor would sort of back, and then the boys would sprinkle the sand along, and then the rail motor would charge along, and and get a little bit of grip, and it'd be bumping around, and sometimes we'd make it, and sometimes if it was really bad we couldn't go, so the driver would say, okay, we'll have to go home. So then we go backwards all the way home, because we hadn't got to the part of the zigzag yet where we could actually, well, you couldn't turn around anyway, it was all forwards and then back down the zigzag and then forwards again. But if we didn't get that far, well, then we'd have to go backwards all the way home. That was a bit of fun. And then I reckon our poor mums would be looking out the window saying, oh no, here they all come back again.
The chaps on shift in the power station, they had a lot of sitting down time. When there was work to be done, of course they did the work, but a lot of the time they were just sitting. They would make a shuttlecock in a shift, an 8-hour shift. They'd get a cork and with a hand drill, they'd drill a few holes around the edges of it, drill a bigger hole in the centre and put a bit of lead shot in to give it a little bit of weight, and stick the feathers in that they pruned from their white chooks. And they'd bind those with a bit of cotton or something or other, as shuttlecock's usually bound. Put a bit of calico over the cork head, stick that on with sticking plaster, and we'd have a shuttlecock. We'd belt one out in 4 or 5 games. When they'd made a number of shuttlecocks, they couldn't get any more white feathers because they'd pruned their chooks down to no feathers left to come out of them. So they started on the Rhode Island Reds, so we had orange shuttlecocks. And when they'd worked their way through those, they got onto the black Orpingtons, and I reckon we're the only ones in the world ever played badminton with a black shuttlecock. Or an orange one for that matter.
During winter we were lucky because of the hall. We all learnt to play badminton at a very early age. I think we all used to get splinters when we fell over in the hall because the floorboards were so rough. We all learnt the hard way. Because the hall was a multi-purpose thing, it was used for dances and parties, and there was a supper room there. We spent a lot of time playing in there, even if we weren't playing badminton. It was just great.
In hindsight, we had a marvellous time. We could do as we liked. We went to build a workshop in the backyard, and we'd done had all the children out their little huts out in the bush a bit, and we'd go out every Saturday with our sausages and cook them, and we'd go gold washing, we'd go fishing, and getting firewood was a great pastime. We made a fun of it. It was good. We had wild wood aerials down the back of the house, but we never stopped doing anything. When the men were working, they all helped us and told us and looked after us, and so it was really a great life. No, I can't think of anything as off limits. The only time we got into trouble in building a new pipeline down to the lower power station, we'd crawled through about I suppose nearly a mile of this pipeline. When we got to the end, the people working on it got a hell of a shock, and of course chastised us for, goodness, told us never to do it again. And it's been the only time I can ever remember. But we'd go and watch the men, mixing cement for the dam, and they'd tell us what they were doing, and it was marvellous that way. These days you couldn't dare do anything like that.
The thing that stands out most in my mind is the immense sense of the freedom we had. It wasn't agricultural country, so there weren't fences put up. So if you wanted to head off anywhere, you either followed the track, or if you didn't want to follow the track, you could head into the bush in any direction you wanted. But apart from that, in my teen years, I suppose, and we'd say, come out in the morning, have breakfast, and say to Mum, we're going up the lake today, or we're going out to Crown Hill, or we're going out to the Gold Creeks, we're going up to the Langdon Huts, we're going to Langdon River, we're going to Basin Lake, or whatever. And Mum's immediate reaction would be, all right, you want me to catch your lunch then? And you'd be home for tea, which was usually 5 o'clock. And even though the weather was sometimes atrocious, I can't ever remember being said, oh, you don't want to go out in this weather, do you? It was, okay, yeah, you're going somewhere. And we were never bored. There was always something to do.
And then there was a Mr. Triffett, Mr. Stan Triffett. He used to walk the haulage every day and take the rainfall. He was a real elderly man. And then after that he'd go out to the fishery. They had a little fishery out in the bush, and they used to get the small trout and feed them out there. And when they'd get big enough, they'd take them to the rivers. And he done a good job, really, the old man. And they had the two little pools. And one was for the real tiny ones, and one's for the bit bigger ones. But we used to often go out over there and have a look at them. And as soon as you went near, they was all gather in a heap they think you was going to feed them. And he went over every day. He used to get lamb's fries and cook them, and then grate them up and take it over all grated. And they used to have. It used to be lovely to see them all going for it at once.
My father was a very keen fisherman, gardener, and as you could imagine, to try and have a decent garden at Lake Margaret would have taken some doing, and he actually put wires through the garden beds to warm them up, and it worked, except it only. That's why I never eat Brussels sprouts anymore, because unfortunately Brussels sprouts grew very well at Lake Margaret, and I was forced to eat Brussels sprouts, and I can't look at them anymore. But